The City Council regular meeting for Monday, February 9th, 2026 to order. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jody, can I get a roll call, please?
Mayor King.
Here.
Councilwoman Niner. Here. Councilman Newberry. Here. Councilman Emos. Here. Councilman Doomer. Here.
Quorum being present. If council's had an opportunity to review the agenda, are there any objections to the agenda as presented? Hearing no objections, the agenda is approved by unanimous consent. If council's had an opportunity to review the consent agenda, are there any objections to the consent agenda as presented? Hearing no objections, it is approved by unanimous consent. This time, if there's someone from the public that would like to address council about something not on the agenda item, please step up to the podium, state your name and address, and your remarks will be limited to 3 minutes.
John Self, 205 South Campbell. The Veterans Memorial over here, do we pay for the maintenance on that, or is that handled by the state or some other entity? Because there are 4 out of 5 lights burned out that shine on that memorial. I said something to Jake Thielen, that's how long it's been since I said anything, but the light that shines on the flag has been broken since at least then, and now it's officially burned out. So if the city is responsible for that, I would like to request us to look into that. My second issue of 3 is there is a petition circulating for an audit of the city of Pleasant Hill, and I get a lot of pushback from residents who are afraid that the city is going to retaliate against them for signing the petition. I want to state for the record, I don't think anybody on council or staff would ever do anything like that. But I would like to have an official statement from the city that that is not going to happen if they choose to sign the petition.
Okay. Number 3.
Number 3, and this one I'm very passionate about, so please forgive me. In a prior life, before I was a professional city antagonist, I was a motorcycle mechanic. And I got really tired of going to funerals and hospitals. And the day I stopped riding motorcycles was the day that I came around a corner on a test ride, and there was a human foot laying in the road and a handlebar sticking up out of the ditch. One of our customers had gone wide on a corner and clipped a car. I have seen so many children under the age of 8 riding electric scooters on our streets. Missouri state law has taken away our helmet requirements for motorcycles, but the laws on scooters remain the same. If it goes up to 30 miles an hour, if it's under 50 cc's, it has a manual transmission, it does not require tags. But it does still require a driver's license. These children do not understand the rules of our streets and roads, and on this end of town, they don't have sidewalks to ride on. And I know you're working on the sidewalk issue, and I'm appreciative of that. But those kids aren't even wearing helmets, half of them. They will zoom past a stop sign like it doesn't exist. They have no clue what they're doing. And if you don't do something, someone's going to get hurt. And it may be permanent. So please, I don't care what you do, get these kids in helmets, get a permit on these things, make their parents sign a waiver, something, so that they're aware of what happens when a car runs over a child. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? All right. First item on the agenda is a presentation for the 2025 Household Hazardous Waste Program Review.
Thank you, Mayor. In your packet, I just provided you some information that the Mid-America Regional Council had provided us, as they do at the end of every calendar year for those entities that are a member of the Household Hazardous Waste Program. So as you recall, we did join mid-year last year where our residents could start participating again in August. Then back in October, we presented the 2026 agreement, to which was approved. So with that being said, just a quick highlight, even in the short amount of time that we were involved in calendar year 2025, City of Pleasant Hill residents disposed of 6,245 pounds of household hazardous waste at either the Lee Summit or Kansas City permanent location. So that is obviously a benefit to, keeping those types of items out of trash streams, that sort of thing. I will note that the mobile collection events for 2026, the calendar is being finished up. We will host a mobile event since it's our first year back, just as it had been done prior to 2028. For many years prior to that, we partnered with the City of Harrisonville, and it rotated every year. 1 year it would be here, the next year it would be in Harrisonville. So we will host that event. Again, the date has not been solidified. We anticipate sometime, obviously, in the summer. It will be held down at our facility at Cass County Fairgrounds. We'll have volunteers to help with that. We'll have members from the City of Harrisonville and the Mid-America Regional Council. So it'll be a great event. But again, just the highlight and the analysis from 2025 is in your packet for you to review. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Does that tell us exactly how many people utilized that?
Yes, so there were,
I'll say, if you can read that Excel
I know.
spreadsheet without.
Yeah, that's why I wasn't even trying.
71 cars. So 71 people, 71 cars registered in that short amount of time to then drop off the 6,245 pounds.
And because we're a member, residents can go up to Lee Summit and also use the collection if they don't want to wait for those dates.
So the mobile sites, correct, 100%.
Any other questions from council?
When does this come back? When does this come back up to vote to see if we do this again?
So it was voted on, I would assume probably around October is when, September to October, I believe, is when they send out the contracts for then the following calendar year. So ours was approved in October of 2025 for 2026.
Okay.
All right. There's no other questions. Any questions from anyone in the community? All right. Moving on, item number 6, 2026 excise tax report.
Okay, I will take this one, thank you. So I bring forth to you 2026 as excise tax report. I'll give you a little background information. The voters authorized an excise tax and council adopted a rate methodology to calculate the tax back in 2002. An excise tax is a fee charged on new development and provides a funding mechanism for streets and related improvements based on the total number of new vehicle trips generated by building activity. The council is obligated to review the excise tax fund and evaluate established rates annually. So financial information, it increases or decreases to the existing excise tax will have an impact on the budget, making it more or less funding availability for their transportation-related projects. This year, the excise tax fund is projected to have $31,526 estimated fund balance at the end of fiscal year 2026. The staff recommendation, the per trip surcharge has not been updated since fiscal year 2024, and city staff recommends to do an adjustment of 2% for the residential category to keep pace with the adjustment to the construction cost index, the CCI. This would increase the per trip surcharge from $13.44 to $13.70 per building permit for residential. So there are some attachments. The excise tax report is included, a breakdown of the history of it, what the per trip charge means for residential, commercial, and industrial. I don't recommend increasing commercial or industrial, but residential just to keep up with the CCI. And then if you guys do pass that, there is a resolution number R 2608 to increase that. Do you have any questions?
Questions from council?
So if no questions, you'll just have to approve the resolution for updating the methodology for calculating the license tax on building contractors.
When does the resolution have to be approved by?
April 1st, 2026.
Can I just ask why we didn't, I mean, I know it was in the packet, but why we didn't list the resolution on the agenda?
That's a good question, and I already noted that we need to make sure items have the resolution number and the title for you all to read.
And we can bring it back.
I'll say if, unless council has an objection to that, I would like to put that on the next council agenda, so that it's on the agenda prior to getting here. Does council have any objections?
No, I don't have an objection to that.
Any comments from the public before we move on to the next item on this resolution?
For broken foot.
If you have a broken foot, just stay there.
I'm okay.
Okay.
It's good to walk. Not fall over. I'm just curious, and this is really just something that popped into my head, and it really is a question for Amy as I look at council. But if that's an increase of like, I don't know, but let's just say 30 cents because it's minimal. That's per what? So like per house, how much will that actually increase the building permit? Because it doesn't go like, the building permit's not $13. So is it $13 per square foot? So what's the average going to actually increase the building permit for the house?
Thank you.
Would you like me to?
If you have that answer, if not, I'll have it in the next council meeting.
Well, I could, so a single family, Missy probably could explain a little bit more on the building regulation side of things, because it is calculated with the building permits for residential applications.
So it's included in the base building permit, your excise tax fee is. If you're asking what the amount will increase per, okay, I have to deflect back to Amy, because I think it was like $20 or.
Yeah, so we were gonna increase the base it to $13.70, but then there is what is this report? I apologize, I don't know the.
So I think, I'll just help, if I'm understanding it
Yes.
correctly, it actually won't change the cost of the actual building permit any at all.
No.
So when you get a building permit, that amount, there's multiple fees that are assessed within the total of a building permit. So the actual building permit fee, a water tap, a sewer tap, and the street excise. So the actual impact on the building permit fee that has to do with the number of square footage, that's not changing.
Okay.
All this is changing is the excise tax, which was currently at $1,344. It would increase it to $1,370. So not on the building permit fee, just one of the associated fees with the building permit, similar to like water tap, sewer tap, that sort of thing. So honestly, Carla, nothing to do with the actual building permit in itself.
I just wanted to understand it better. That was perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so, yeah, let's just put that on the next council.
And I guess just to maybe clarify, while it's not on the agenda, because we can present you the report and not make any changes to it. It's just staff is making a recommendation to make the change. And if you so desire to make the change, the resolution needs to pass. So that might be why that it could be, because again, which is fine, we can do it at the next meeting. We just need direction from you all if you accept staff's recommendation. And if so, we'll leave the resolution as presented on the next agenda. If you want, I guess, something different, because, Amy, is that correct, that they're not changing the amount, the resolution doesn't even have to be passed?
That is correct.
Okay.
Do you guys want the resolution in the next meeting with the new amount?
Yes, please.
So I need a motion to increase the per trip surcharge.
Well, you don't even have to do that, because that's ultimately approving the resolution. We would just need direction, if we have your consensus that you want it on the next agenda at the staff recommended rate, then no other action is needed taken, as long as we understand that that is your all's direction.
Okay, that is the direction that we want the resolution. Okay, next item is a grant application for window improvement project at the historic tree line.
I will take this one, Mayor. Let me just get to my spot in my agenda. Okay, what you have before you is it's really just a quote that the Pleasant Hill Community Betterment received from a company that specializes in historic window renovations. And so ultimately, there has obviously a need has arisen, or it has been identified that we need to do some significant work to the windows in the historic train depot. As you can see from what was in your packet, that quote was actually received last April. Obviously, the quote in itself came with a pretty large price tag. At that time, Community Betterment was trying to find ways to potentially come up with the funding to help, with this project. To date, they have actually been awarded a grant for $15,000 from Union Pacific to contribute towards this project. In the meantime, as we kind of talk through a lot of things, when we have a project such as such, we try to identify grants and other ways to pay for these that aren't just, ahead of even today's, budget discussion, that we can try to make sure we can keep up with the things that need to be done. So staff has identified a grant through the Missouri State Parks that is currently open with a pre-application deadline of February the 27th. The grant does require a 60-40 match, and in this specific grant, municipalities are the eligible applicant underneath the program guidelines. While the grant is highly competitive, the scope and purpose of this project align well with the program's criteria, and I just noted in your packet or in the memo that I included that one of the guidelines of the grant is construction projects for the purpose of protecting, rehabilitating, or restoring historic properties. Eligible properties must be listed on the National Register of Historic Places and have maintained their historic integrity. Construction projects also must demonstrate that they are not eligible for federal or state historic tax credits, which we are not. Only one construction project will be awarded in this grant round, as you can see, super competitive. So why you have it before you this evening is that because to fill out the application, we would ultimately then be committing our portion, the 40% portion of the project. And as you can see, when Community Betterment was working with this specific contractor, that they did provide a separate quote, which was just for an alternative bid, an alternative quote. Which was just identifying some of the worst windows to address, obviously because of the funding component of it. Randy Miller is here with us this evening, and he is with Community Betterment. If you all have any questions, they were actually the point of contact with this. Should the grant be awarded, we would still have to go through all of the normal procurement. So this is not necessarily the contractor that has to be used. It was just, as an entity, they went out to try, you got to get an idea of what it is that you're looking at, and that's what they did by finding this contractor. Again, actually it was based on a recommendation from SHPO, which is the State Historic Preservation Commission, again, because this company specializes in historic repairs. But again, this isn't the actual contractor necessarily. It would still have to be procured. You'd have proposals go out to bid, that sort of thing, and then ultimately that would still have to be approved. However, we don't like to submit grant applications unless we know we have our matching funds. That's why this is before you this evening, because the last thing you want to do is be awarded a grant and then have to basically, oops, sorry, we don't really want your money. That's a real bad black eye that gives an organization. So with that being said, there would be potentially two options. The full scope, again, based on this bid, that's the amount we're going to apply for the grant. Again, we don't know if that's the exact amount because we would have to still go out to bid. But the current project is proposed at about $298,000, so just shy of $300,000. Staff does estimate potentially a 5% increase because this quote was received about a year ago. So our 40% match of that would be approximately $125,160. Then if we did the reduced scope, which was just like the 16 windows of the second story that were the worst, the estimate was 120, just shy of 128,000 with an estimated 5% increase. So our match for that reduced scope would be about $54,000. So tonight, because we do have, if you all would like us to apply for this grant, we do have to have our pre-application completed by February the 27th. So we are just looking at some direction from you. I will happy to answer questions, or Randy is here and could probably answer questions better than I on specifics. However, like I said, we would look for direction because we're not going to apply for it unless we know that council is willing to use that side. With that being said, also remember we do have that $15,000 that community betterment would contribute towards the project that would obviously go towards our match.
Is that all the community betterment would be doing, is just that $15,000?
I mean, unless we find other grants along the way, which I know we've been actively looking at and they have as well. But I mean, I can't speak on their behalf, but like I said, we do have that, they've committed that $15,000 grant.
But they don't have any other funds to apply towards it?
I'd be happy to come up with it.
Go ahead, Mr. Miller, thank you.
Thank you. I think we would all agree that the historic depot is a centerpiece of downtown, and it's a valuable thing. It was built in 1903. It's got the original windows in it, believe it or not. When the wind blows down there, you can actually feel a breeze going through the building. If you look real close at the glass, it's the original float glass. It's the way they made glass back then, and it's real wavy. Last year, our chairman, Terry Wilson, charged me with the duty of going out and getting some bids on replacing the windows. And unfortunately, there are not a whole lot of folks in that business. One person didn't even want to come look at it. Another gentleman came down and looked at it, and he said, golly, this is beyond the scope of what I do. I normally do old houses, and I'm just not interested. But he recommended these review people, and they are huge. They are the go-to people for window restoration on the historic register and whatnot. The windows themselves are an environmental can of worms. The paint has lead. The actual caulking that goes around the window itself has asbestos. So the abatement process to repair them would just be phenomenal. Therefore, these folks recommend removing the windows, disposing of the hazardous materials, and making brand new windows that look identical to the original windows. So that's the reason for the high price tag. But these folks, they have all kinds of computerized CNC equipment that replicates the window to the nth detail. So it would be the original window, it's just new. And of course it would be painted in a non-lead based paint and free of asbestos on everything else. So that's kind of where it's at. That's why it's so costly. Again, as Nikki said, the second bid was just for the upstairs because it is just literally gone. I mean, there's windows out up there, and we keep patching them up. Community Betterment does not have just a whole lot of funding sources, so what little money we take in and rent, we pass back out to the community in the form of scholarships, high school scholarships. So we're just really tight on funds, but graciously, Union Pacific did give us the $15,000, and we were very appreciative of that. But as far as any other funds, we really don't have any. So I'd be willing to entertain any questions.
If we weren't, able to, well, what I'm trying to say is, do we, I understand it is a historic building and it should have the best windows. Is it even possible to have just look-alike windows that aren't 100%?
Well, I'm sure you could probably come up with something that would be similar, but the problem you get into with that is that you can actually lose National Register. Yeah, because of the fact that you're not keeping it to its original intent. So it's a real fine line as to walk there as far as maintaining a historic structure like that. And I'm quite sure that these folks, they are experts in that field, and it would look 100% like it did before. So that's what they're getting for that money.
But it's $24,000 a window.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, but they are insulated panes. Each piece is CNC routed to look exactly like the original piece. So these folks have some very expensive equipment, and I'm sure that's why it is so expensive.
Do you believe that all 46 windows need to be done now?
Well, I spent a long career working for the city of Pleasant Hill, and I know these decisions are very difficult. I do know that the worst need is upstairs, and if I were to prioritize and had to
So I have a question for Missy. Sorry, I need to put you on the spot. And if you can't answer it, just say you can't answer it, but they would run the risk of losing their historic status by just using regular.
There is that possibility, yes. Because it could be considered a contributing factor, is what put it on that registry, is the windows.
Are they replacing the wood with wood, or are they doing a different?
It actually is mahogany, and I was very concerned about that because those windows are so old that they're made of old virgin timber, which, if you know anything about wood, those old trees were very dense, and they were first cut, and they've been there forever, and that concerned me a lot. But they claim that they can get this particular version of mahogany from the Philippines that is old growth, and that it's very dense. So that is a concern, but they claim they're addressing it.
So would any of this be resolved if we were to ever eventually make that an active train depot again?
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, as far as like somebody else paying for it besides us?
Yeah.
I
I mean, given with what we heard earlier, I'm just not seeing where you're gonna come up with $54,000.
It would be fund balance, if that was a priority.
As a one-time expense, yeah.
How long has the community betterment rented that out from us?
I don't know that answer off the top of my head. I'd have to go back to the memorandum of understanding. I'm not sure.
And I can't remember, I know it was just last year when I had read that agreement. I know they rent it from us, but aren't they supposed to like maintain things? Like if they've had it for a few decades, correct? Like,
shouldn't they, I mean, I know they've just recently have done the bathrooms and some other little stuff.
So historically, thinking back to some of the larger repair items, it's always been the city. I mean, community betterment has done aesthetic type things, small projects, but when we had to do the roof, there was a time we had city staff was the ones that, removed some tile in the floor. I mean, there was some furnace HVAC stuff. I mean, it's, in essence, the large items have always been ours because it's our building. So I know there's been some aesthetic type things that have been done, that community betterment has done as part of the agreement. But in my time and knowledge, the city has paid for the large majority because, again, absent of that agreement, it's still a city facility.
I'm just thinking $24,000 a window is, and that's the only thing that we have to look at right now. That's what we're, like, I would like to see more options. I would like to know what other things are out there. I mean, I know these people are great, but that's just a lot of money.
And we can do nothing. Ultimately, we don't have to do anything. We're just, again, we've heard nonstop, go after grants. So we found one that meets the criteria of this, and it still is always a project. So we can do nothing, and
It might be the timing too from our work.
Sure, no, I get it 100%. Because when we started talking, we started working on agenda items 2 weeks ago, and we weren't quite, to know where we were at. Again, it is. It's a one-time expense when we talk about the use of fund balance. These are the types of things, but again, it's totally up to you all. We're not going to apply for the grant because that is a real bad black eye if you apply for a grant and then you come back and be like, just kidding, we're not going to be able to put up our match. So that's why we always would come to you first to find out if you want to allocate it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. Our match is the max of $125,000. That's the max.
No, that's
Is our match or no?
That is if we did the full scope based on this quote. Again, we had to have some starting point to know how much to apply for. So, we will obviously, put in there, this is how much we're asking. If it comes back and you get quotes or, formal bids and it's less, then your match is going to ultimately be less. So, you can't even know how much to apply for without a general idea of what the project's going to cost. So we use the quote that they obtained to then at least have an idea so that we know what to potentially even apply for.
So we have another council meeting before that grant before we would have to apply for that?
Correct. We have one more, yes.
Okay, I'm just making sure because I've heard different things. All 46 windows in the old one were 298,000, right?
That was in the quote, and so.
We think it would be 312 based on a 5% increase for 46 windows.
Correct.
Okay. So that's $6,700 window.
Okay.
I'm like, where are you getting that?
Well,
number?
I'm seeing total new windows 12 and
Okay.
then 298.
I just didn't know where that number was coming from. I'm like,
That's where
My
that, see,
math
I even
wasn't
did the
mathing.
math right here, like,
my math wasn't mathing. That's sorry. I'm like, so that's $6,700 window.
okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Shit, I just spent $28,000 for 12 windows.
And this,
I personally would like to see us postpone this to the next council meeting.
Okay.
I'm just being honest, I need to, I need to digest this and take it into
Yeah,
consideration.
no, we have time. More than likely, we will probably go ahead and at least get the grant application started. It is pretty in-depth. And so because, again, if the next meeting you decide that doesn't give us very many days to finish it, so we'll probably go ahead and get it started. But yes, we won't do anything or any submittals until we hear from you all.
So I guess my next question would be, if you submitted this on February 27th, would you set aside that 125 or 54,000 out of the current budget and set it aside, or the next budget that we're currently working on?
it would be the next budget that we're currently working on. I don't have the grant application pulled up in front of me, because again, the 27th is actually just the pre-application deadline, which is required. And then they give you, if you're selected through the pre-application, they give you some feedback on your application. And then I actually want to say it is the end of March before the actual full application is then due. So it would be, and then obviously I'm not sure what their award cycle is. I think it's towards the fall. So it would be probably towards the fall of 2026 before we would find out. And then they give you your grant award, then you would go out to bid. So we'd probably still put it in next year's budget.
All right. Any other questions from council at this time? Anybody from the public would like to speak, please step up, state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, guys. I have 3 or 4 things here that are just questions mostly, but the first thing is on the quote that we have, it says exclusions, disposal of current window sashes, trim, or other window unit material, abatement of any lead or asbestos containing material, and dumpster or trash disposal services. So does that mean that this bid does not include the removal of the asbestos and the lead, that the city will be responsible for that on top of that? And I'm not sure. I'm asking, because it's listed as an exclusion on the quote. The next question that I have is I was under the understanding, because we've been looking at these grants as well, for some things that we've got going on, and of course I'm not going to do anything now because I would like the cities to take priority if we want to do it. With that being said, I thought it was a $50,000 max. I could be wrong, but everything I've read is it's a $50,000 max. So if it's a $50,000 max, is it really 60-40, or will you guys be responsible for everything over $50,000? The other thing that I was going to say is that I've done a lot of research on historic preservation. I've done a lot of research and read numerous times the requirements for historic preservation from the national and state boards, etc. You can use a different type of window and still be historically accurate. They don't want you to do it if you're just fixing a few things, right? But we're talking about replacing every window in the depot at an extensive cost. So there are historical options. And one of those historical options is an aluminum window that is called a historic profile window. And it is made specifically to mimic the old wood windows. They say from the street you can't tell the difference. Now, I don't know that that's something that you would want to consider on the first floor, but I do think it is something you could consider on the second floor where there's only 4 windows that even open. The rest of them are all utility windows. And to pay $6,000 or $7,000 for a utility window just seems ridiculous. Anyway, they do make an aluminum. It looks just like the wood. The profile is exactly the same. I would suggest that if you're going to put it off to the next council meeting, that perhaps we could actually call the state people that are doing the grant and ask them, here's what we're looking at, here's the scope of the project. Would we be okay and still historically accurate if we did the historical profile aluminum windows or not? Would we qualify for the grant if we did that, or would we not? And that might be a determining factor as well. But I would like to know if they would allow us to do that, because if they will, that typically ranges between $40,000 and $75,000 for the same number of windows in my research. The other thing that I would say is, and I know that what Misty said is that they are contributing, the windows are contributing, and they are. There's nothing on it. So here's my other question really quick before I get too far ahead and then I'm going to go away. On the grant process, the other thing you may want to check out is, it was my understanding that if you were going to do construction projects with this grant, it had to be on the National Historic Register places, and we are not. None of our buildings are. It is a district that was created. It is not an actual individual building that is on the historical places markers. So it's a verbiage thing, but I just would want to verify it with the grant process before I went into it. But the other thing I was going to say is that it is a contributing building to the historic district, but it can still remain a contributing building to the historic district as long as it looks the same. It's not necessarily that it has to be wood to wood. They don't allow vinyl. I mean, they don't. But they do allow this historical profile aluminum window because of the cost effectiveness and what it's costing to replace these windows in historical buildings. So that's all I've got to say. Thank you for your time. My foot hurts, and sit down.
Good information. I think we've seen that, haven't we, Pat? With those aluminum windows that she's talking about?
Yeah,
Yes.
but yeah, whether or not, the building itself is not, on the historic register as that building, but as the district, it is a contributing building, so.
Okay.
And if you lose too many of your contributing buildings,
Then
then you can
lose.
lose your accreditation.
How long will they last?
The vine,
The mahogany?
well, if you're talking about those vinyls, Pat might be a good person to answer that one.
Can't be vinyl.
Not vinyl, the aluminum, I'm sorry.
But how long will the mahogany last?
They're going, if,
I mean, it's wood, it would eventually
yeah, you're
rot.
gonna last another 100 years if they're maintained properly.
I just have one last thing, and then I'm gonna be quiet.
Mhm.
Even if we were to, not that we're going to, but if we were to say, hey, yeah, go ahead with the match, or the grant, we're not locked into this bid.
No.
Okay,
Okay.
that's,
Yeah, no.
that's what I thought, but I just wanted to make sure everybody else understood. This is just a starting point.
There was, yes, correct. It was just a starting point that we were using, the city is the one applying for the grant. In the time that, once the grant was released, I was using the data that they had already established to use. So no, we would still have to go through the formal procurement process.
You can step up.
My name is Jessica Elliott. I'm at 217 North Campbell, and I'm just curious if our, I just don't know the answer to this question, is with our membership or partnership with Missouri Main Street, they can provide additional resources to people that can maybe make these repairs. I think a 2-year-old bid or a 1.5-year-old bid is probably gone up quite a bit, especially with all the tariffs and other things. So I just think we probably need to have a little bit more information, and like Michelle said, probably some more options, or like Carla said, maybe some more options, but at that expense and with the work session, I think that that's a lot to ask for.
I'm just gonna add, I think you're missing the point though. I just said, this is just a starting point.
No.
Doesn't mean that we're locked into this, we have to have a starting point. You gotta crawl before you can walk, and
I
we
absolutely.
can't do anything until we have something to look at.
I understand, and that's what I'm saying, is maybe we should have more options before we go into it, is what I'm saying.
All right, anyone else?
Mine's really easy.
Yeah.
I was just curious if anybody has asked the people that restored the caboose if they know somebody, since they're in the Training World restoration business. They might know someone that does that kind of stuff.
Well, and that's my point with Missouri Main Street, is they have people that do the cabooses, I'm sure, in a lot of towns, historic towns, so maybe they would have some options.
Anything else from council on this? All right, need a motion to go into closed session.
I'll make a motion to go into closed
We're
session.
gonna, hold on, I wasn't there yet. 16-021, 1 legal and 3 personnel matters.
Now,
Now,
I'll make a motion to go into closed session for legal matters and personal matters.
I second.
okay, we have a motion and a second to go into closed session pursuant to RSMO 610-021. 1 for legal actions, litigation, and attorney-client communication, and RSMO 610-021, 3 for personnel matters. Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilwoman Niner,
Yes.
Councilman Newberry,
Yes.
Councilman Emo,
Yes.
Councilman Newell.
Yes.
All right, we're in closed.
Is it a smile?
Randy.
Yes, boss.
Bob, yes.
Oh, yeah.